I want to go into retail. I want to go into hospital. Like, I don't know.
I used to always worry about what people thought of me and would try so hard to live by society's standards. Then I realized that I was created to be different, and regardless of what I did, I would never fit in. So I decided to follow my dreams instead. Join me on this journey as I grow in my faith, go through the ups and downs of pharmacy school, and most importantly, being God's masterpiece.
Hey y'all, how are you doing? I know it's been a little while since I've done a video, and because of that, I figured why not do a Q&A. So on my Instagram and on YouTube, I asked y'all, what are some things that you want to know? What are some things you want me to go over? So I said, let's just have a Q&A video. So the first question that I have is, besides COVID, what other challenges did you face while on rotations? So it's actually I actually didn't really get too affected by COVID because of everything going on. I was actually on my off rotation for 6 weeks in March. So that's like kind of when COVID hit. And so I wasn't really affected because I was already home. But my last rotation was not home. It was actually supposed to be in New York City. However, this was when like everything was still like trying to be figured out, like, you know, what are we gonna do, what's safe, what's not safe. And I would have had to take the train to get to my rotation site, and I didn't feel comfortable doing that. And so I just reached out to my school, and they completely understood. So they set me up with a rotation online. I basically was a TA for the ethics class. Which was actually pretty cool because I really enjoy having discussions about ethics in healthcare. I think that's something that's not discussed often enough. In medical professions, you know, sometimes students don't get asked hard questions to kind of think about like what is morally, you know, ethical, like what's right, you know, what's wrong, like this might be right scientifically, but is it right morally? So that was actually pretty interesting and I enjoyed it. The next question is, how did you decide what field of pharmacy you wanted to get into after graduation? So this is kind of still up in the air. I don't necessarily know exactly what career I want to go into. I think that's all gonna depend on God, honestly. I'm not licensed yet as a pharmacist, so I still have to kind of just get licensed and then kind of see where God directs my path. Honestly, like I've shared in other videos, I'm really not stressing, I'm really not worried. Like, I know that God is sovereign and I know that God is faithful, so I'm not going to stress or worry or fear about what the next steps are. As far as like what career I'd want to go into, I'm honestly really open. Like the biggest thing for me, I think it's important to understand is that like you can be in a great career and still hate your job. Like I think it all depends on the environment, who you work with, like the social, like work balance, like that whole thing. All those factors come into play when it comes to deciding like what do you want to do, and that's the factors that I'm looking into. I really just want to be somewhere that, you know, there's good people working there, the environment is healthy and it's not toxic. Yeah, those are like pretty much it. But honestly, I'm really just trusting God, so I can't really like give you like, I want to go into retail, I want to go into hospital. Like, I don't know. I want to go into wherever God needs me to go into. Oh, and before I forget, if you notice my shirt. So I have launched my Be His Masterpiece merchandise. Y'all, I am super excited about this. I put in a lot of work into it. This is one of the designs. It says masterpiece and it gives a definition, which is the Bible verse, Ephesians 2 verse 10. This is one of my favorite pieces, so check it out. The link is in my bio, and buy as much merch as you like. And just so you know, I personally make these shirts in my room. So these are handcrafted by me with these hands, okay? So that, I think that makes it a little bit more special. So check it out, and yeah. So another question is, how involved were you during P1 year? I just started, but I'm already studying a lot. P1 year, I was not involved. And I think part of that was because like I already got my bachelor's. So like I transferred in. They call it transferring in, but like you're not transferring, you're starting the PharmD program. So I think they're changing that terminology. But to be honest, I was not that active as far as like being involved. My first year, I really just focused on studying. So that's what you're doing. I recommend you at least like join like one like professional club, like APHA or ASSHP, like, you know, one of those clubs, just to kind of like start building up your CV or your resume. But definitely like your first semester, take it easy, kind of figure out what your study habits are, figure out, you know, what works for you, and then you can start integrating things like working or being involved. I think working is definitely a big one. It's super important. A lot of people like don't recognize how important it is, especially in the pharmacy career, because it doesn't only just help give you experience, but it helps you with networking and like stuff of that sort. So definitely work if you can. If you realize that like you can't do both, that's fine. Work during the summer when you are not studying. When did the love of pharmacy begin? Honestly, it was my junior year of undergrad. I shared this in like another video, so I'll link it up here so you can get the full story. But a shortened version of it is I originally wanted to go to medical school and become a pediatrician, but like my heart was not in that. And I just remember like kind of just being in this like, okay, I don't know what I want to do, but fine, I'm just gonna graduate and figure it out. And one night I was in my dorm room on my floor, literally like praying and like crying out to God. And there was this internship that I applied to, but like it wasn't specific. It was kind of just like, this is a science research internship, apply. So I was like, okay, like I'm doing science, why not? So I prayed and I was just like, I don't know what, like when I tell you, like this is why people think I'm crazy, like when I share this story, but when I tell you like, I don't know how pharmacy came into my heart, into my mind. It was the Lord, because when I had the interview for that internship that summer, I was like, you know, I'm looking into pharmacy. And they're like, oh, we have the perfect place for you. I was like, oh, okay. I did it, and come to find out, the head of the research department was the vice provost of the college that I eventually went to. So God just orchestrated everything. Pharmacy is really the heart of medicine. Like, usually every patient that comes into the hospital, comes into the pharmacy, like they need a medication for something. So to be able to be that advocate for patients and to be able to help physicians, nurses, NPs, PAs, like to, you know, understand a little bit more about how drugs work to help make their patients feel better, I really enjoyed that and like to be in all of that. Any advice for Black students planning to study pharmacy? Ooh, that's a really good question. My advice to you is to not let imposter syndrome get to you. And pretty much, like, there's a lot of definitions behind this, but pretty much like what I experienced at least was feeling like I wasn't good enough because I didn't see anyone else that really looked like me. Like, I think I literally can count on my hands how many Black students were in my class. And so you can kind of get to a point where you feel like I don't belong, which, you know, it may look like that because it's like, whoa, like everyone around me is like white and I'm the only Black person. Like, you're gonna feel like you don't belong, but I think something that you really have to like push through is to recognize that like you aren't there by accident. Like, you have to recognize that you are good enough, because if you let imposter syndrome really get to you, you will not study as hard. You will already like consider yourself a failure. Like, you will already like consider yourself less than. But it's so important to remind yourself like that you are good enough, that you do deserve to be there, that you are good enough to complete this program just as much as your classmates. So really just have that confidence, and it's hard. But constantly remind yourself that you are good enough, that you are smart enough, that you are capable, because there's so much that like will try to tell you that you're not. There's people that will try to tell you that you're not, and not like directly, but like in certain ways. Like I'll link the video that I have about my school being only 3% Black, but like there were just moments where just in conversation you can tell that students were already like counting you out when it came to talking about patient cases and stuff like that. So don't let that get to you, but instead like study hard. And like it sucks that this is the truth, but you have to really study harder just to be considered on the same level as your classmates, which is crazy, but that's what it is. And I'm praying that things change, but really just know that you are there for a reason. Trust that God has put you there for a reason, and just, you know, don't give into the whole imposter syndrome. Like it's so easy, but really fight it. And you know, in the moments where you don't feel good enough, like remind yourself that you are. And yeah, make your voice known. If something is uncomfortable, if something doesn't sit right, if something is said, like either talk to that person, talk to your professor, talk to the dean, like make your voice known. I think that's very important. Like one thing I do appreciate about my school is that when we had like Black History Month and we had like a discussion, like some of the professors came and they were like, hey, how can we make a better environment? Like considering all that you're sharing, like what can we do as professors to make this better? And I really appreciate that they were open. So you'll be surprised, like professors, you're like counselors, they're all open to trying to make things better, some of them. But, but you know, so make your voice known. You never know who will hear you and, you know, want to advocate for you. So that's my advice. Okay, I haven't finished college, but I would love for you to talk about financial help when it comes to pharmacy school. Scholarships, any advice on how to study, strategies that help you succeed. So you're actually not the first person to ask this question. Multiple people have asked me about like the financial portion of pharmacy school. Pharmacy school is expensive, I'm not gonna lie. You know, there are only like, at least in New York State, like 2 SUNY schools, so like it costs a lot. But one of the things, I personally didn't have like scholarships through my school or like anything of that sort. However, some things that I think could be beneficial for individuals, like if I, you know, could go back, things that I would have done, at least things I did in undergrad. I could talk about undergrad more so than I can about pharmacy, but it's still college, so I guess that is fine. But I became an RA, and that helped a lot. Like if you are planning to go into pharmacy school, if you did not go straight from high school, it is best to attend a SUNY school, community college, something of the sort. Just make sure that your school transfers those classes and those credits for the specific classes that you need. But it is so beneficial to do that because you will spend so much less money, and try to knock them out in a year or two, like the prerequisites that you have, just because it'll save you a lot, so that way when you get into pharmacy school you won't have to take out that much, you won't be in that much debt beforehand. So I went to SUNY school for undergrad. I also became an RA, so they actually like paid for housing, and they gave us like a stipend. So that worked out. And then the last year of college, I was a housing manager, so I didn't have to like take out a meal plan. I was able to just purchase my own food. So in pharmacy school, I know at least at my school, a lot of students did have scholarships because they started out of high school. So like if you were valedictorian, if you had like a high GPA, or like certain things, like a lot of students did get scholarships for that. But since I was considered a transfer, they didn't really have anything because those scholarships were prioritized to like students who started out of high school, which in my opinion was a little unfair, but that's what it was. So my advice to you is to become an RA. So you could probably get free housing, live off campus instead of on campus, because on campus housing is so much more expensive. If you could get you and some friends to live off campus somewhere in an apartment, you could probably save so much more money. And yeah, honestly, like, try to take out federal loans instead of private loans, because private loans are the devil. They really are. Yeah, take out private loans. And also, when you like are at a certain point in pharmacy school, you're considered a grad student. So if you can't take out federal loans anymore, the federal government has a grad plus loan, so it's still considered federal. So do that instead of doing private. But other than that, like, the thing is just like, pharmacy school is expensive. However, the job that you get, most likely you'll be making a 6-figure salary. Yes, I know that there are a lot of changes going on in pharmacy, like saturation, all that stuff. However, ultimately, like, eventually you'll be making a 6-figure salary. So you are good for it as far as like your loan. So it's not like you will be struggling all your life. Like, you are investing into your future. Like how my sister put it, because I was like freaking out about my loan. She was just like, why are you stressing? Like, you invested into a career that's gonna pay off, like, in the long run. Like, something like 30 years from now, you can still be a pharmacist perfectly, and you can still be making 6 figures. So it's just like, you know, like, you have to kind of just put things into perspective sometimes and kind of look at it that way. But of course, like, I would work on the side. I know some schools have it where like you can like pay your tuition monthly. So by doing that, you could take out probably like a certain amount of federal loans, and then the balance, instead of like taking out private loans or doing stuff like that, you can pay monthly, get a job, and try to like pay that down that way. Those are just some things, but like I said, I'm not an expert really in scholarships and like financial stuff, because I took out loans, so that's all I can really speak to be honest with y'all. So my next question is, I just recently started my first year of pharmacy school. Do you have any advice for me? Whoo, there's a lot in that question. I'm gonna try to link a playlist that has all the videos that kind of give specific advice, but my biggest advice is to figure out what works for you. Talk to upperclassmen about specific classes, see what worked for them. Go to peer tutoring, like peer tutoring. Like, I say that to every single person I meet. Peer tutoring, embed it in your schedule, so that way like you go every week, even if you feel like you don't really need it, but just go, because it can help you to reiterate certain topics and certain subjects, certain things. Study with your friends. If you like to study alone, study with your friends, because it really helps a lot to really understand and figure out certain things together. Like, you might know one thing that they don't know, so you could teach them. And teaching another person something can really help to ingrain that topic in your head, so you won't forget it. Like, if you can teach it, that means that you'll be able to recall it on the exam. Yeah, honestly, I would definitely recommend you sign up for my pharmacy survival guide. I like advocate for this course so much because it's like literal like videos of me talking and telling you everything that I wish I knew before starting pharmacy school. And once you, and I think, I don't know if I like mentioned this, but once you sign up for the course, like, you have it forever. And I'm gonna be adding more things to it, so like it'll be constantly updated. I don't want to say constantly and then you like a month later it's not updated and you're mad at me, but like I'm gonna try to update it. Like, when I finally, like, you know, am licensed and like am working, I'm gonna try to update it so that way it can be beneficial to you, like, as time goes on, and as I learn, you can learn. So sign up for my pharmacy survival guide. The link is in my bio. The next question, do you have any advice on scholarships for international students already studying in the US and planning to go to pharmacy school? This kind of goes back to the other question. I can't really speak on scholarships and stuff like that. Any advice on how not to give up? For me, it's my faith. Because if it were up to me, I would have given up a long time ago. But God really just reminded me over and over, like, I put you here for a reason. I have a purpose and I have a plan for your life. Keep going. Like, and he would like show me year after year, like passing that class that I thought I was gonna fail, you know, getting to the next year of pharmacy school, graduating pharmacy school. Like, God constantly showed me, and that was my encouragement to not give up. So if you do not believe in God, I encourage you to check it out. You know, my channel is all about faith, pharmacy, lifestyle. So my faith is very big in my life. So that's my advice I can share to you, is to trust God. If you do not believe in God, comment below, let's talk about it. You know, like, that's something that I think I should implement more on my channel, is talking about salvation. And if you are curious and if you want to learn more, like let's talk, let's chat, email me. I could pray for you, like things of that sort. So that's honestly my advice on how not to give up, is to trust God. Yes. And then for the second question, I'm sure it may be overwhelming, but can you talk about the insider on how it's not just drug interaction versus drug interaction, but the actual caring for the patient? So I see this a lot in pharmacy school. A lot of students are very smart, very, very smart. Like, they can read a whole textbook and they know everything and they know how to treat the patient. However, they're lacking that human interaction portion. So they could see a patient like, okay, you have congestive heart failure, you need to take this, you need to take this, okay, bye. But it's not a matter of like, hey, okay, so this is what's going on. This is what congestive heart failure is. Okay, now let's talk about the medication. It may be overwhelming, but these are some things that you need to look out for. Like, if you have an increase in weight, like, you might want to check that out with your doctor. Like, if you're taking this, but you still feel uneasy, like, what are some things that you like to do? Let's try to implement that so you can try to exercise. Like, you know, things like that are really missing in a lot of students. So, the thing is, it's just like, I know you personally, like, I know you have to like know drug interactions, you have to know all this to pass your exams, to pass your board exams, but ultimately, like, and it's important to know as a pharmacist, some of those things can be looked up. So like, don't get too overwhelmed in that stuff. Obviously know it for your exams and for board exams and stuff like that, but also do not forget like the counseling, the human nature, like the ethics. Like, don't forget that portion, or don't sleep on that, because that's really important. And like, having those interactions with people can really like change their view on medication, and can really determine like how effective their treatment process is. So yeah, I think like that's a good question. Like, caring for the patient is something that's often forgotten about. So I think that's something that is really important to remember. So those are pretty much all the questions. I hope that this video was helpful and answered questions that you probably had or didn't know you had. Or was just entertaining to kind of just learn a little bit more about pharmacy. This wasn't supposed to just be a pharmacy Q&A. However, all the questions that I got were pharmacy related. So I just figured I'd make it a pharmacy Q&A. So that's it. You already know the deal. You can comment below, or you can email me at behismasterpiece@gmail.com. Go out, be kind, be caring, be loving, and as always, be his masterpiece. Bye, y'all.